Hello, everyone. Marc Sabatella from the Mastering MuseScore School. Welcome to the MuseScore Café. So today we're starting a new tradition. I think it's going to be a good tradition. The first Wednesday of every month, I'm going to do an Ask Me Anything session. So the Ask Me Anythings, if you've done any of these before on any other situations, you just ask questions and I answer them the best I can. I do some amount of that anyhow, but this time it's all about your questions. We look forward to hearing what you have. So, let me reset my volume now. I'm kind of getting the uh, gist of how my routine here, making sure everything's all set up well. And so I saw one question already for sure. I actually got a couple questions that came in like through the chat or comments earlier that were real quick ones I was just able to answer already directly. But okay, so the first question that I see is actually not about MuseScore. It's about Lily Pond, which is great. I say ask me anything, it's about anything. So some people, so I'm definitely going to encourage any question, any subject, ideally relating to MuseScore in some way. Lily Pond does relates in some way. And sorry. Or just about music in general. So Lily Pond is another program that some of you may have used to create notation. And the thing with Lily Pond is it's a great program for creating the notation. That's pretty much all it does, though, right? It's not it doesn't have a playback facility in it. It's not at all what you see is what you get. It's basically you type in kind of like a little programming language. You type your score in and then you run it through the LilyPond program and it creates a PDF for you. And it does a fantastic job. I have used it some. And there are some graphical front ends that you can get for it where you can type into one part of the window and see the results in the other part. It's not quite like MuseScore where you're directly clicking on notes and dealing with them directly. But anyhow, it does a fantastic job. And so if you are just interested in getting a really good result really quickly once you get over the learning curve, it's a big learning curve to learn this language that LilyPond has. But yeah, once you get over it, you can get a pretty darn good looking score really quickly. If you need to customize the appearance, it's then that much harder to do because you're not dealing with it directly. But anyhow, that's uh, I'm happy the project exists. I kind of wish it was actually more active. I get the sense that there's a lot of development not happening in Lillipond, and maybe that's maybe I'm wrong about that. But things like import and export from Music XML, I wish was being maintained better. So, is there a score set up for ukulele tab? Yeah, there is actually. So let me go to create a new score. I'm using Control N for the new score, and I don't care about the name. And I'm just going to type first few letters of ukulele here. Oh, that's a template. Sorry. I'm not looking for ukulele template. I want to choose instruments. Jump the gun a little bit there. Now, in the instruments menu, I type ukulele, and here's ukulele tablature. So I'll just go ahead and do that. And so you get, by default, the tuning, the standard kind of tuning. If I go in here and put there you go. That's ukulele tablature, right? My dog has fleas. That's the traditional tuning for the ukulele, and all that stuff is customizable also. But yeah, the default tuning, low string, it's G, C, E, A is the traditional tuning, and that's how the tablature is set up. So chord diagrams. So actually, so yeah, the fret diagrams. Let me talk about that. The fret diagrams. Um, these the fret diagrams palette by default is set up for guitar. However, someone posted a really nice set of ukulele fret diagrams on the MuseScore forum. And so I would love it if someone could maybe, well, actually, you guys can't post links, and I don't know if there's any way I can make it to allow you to post links. But somewhere, if you just do a search, in fact, let's see, let's do this. The way I like to do searches is I use Google and I say site, musescore.org, ukulele fret diagram palette. And there are people who have posted very nice palettes for that you can download. And once you download them, what you can then do is, like, I'm going to right click in here and say load palette. And if I can remember where I put them, here they are. Ukulele fretboards, ukulele chords. So there's a couple of different versions here. I want to make sure I have the newer one. It must be the one here. So now I have ukulele fretboard diagrams, and I can put in, boom, my C chord. So yeah, so once you find yourself that palette, you can download it and then load it. So yeah, I'm just going to keep kind of skipping around, and hopefully, as I go along, if questions go by too fast and I can't keep up, feel free to remind me. Feel free to discuss amongst yourselves if you can find answers. So, piano score with 6 lines on first page, 4 on the second. Okay, so I'm going to first of all suggest don't do that. In other words, don't have a piano score with. So let me create a piano score here. If I go through and create this thing, and I'm going to go ahead and add line breaks every 4 bars. So I now have 32 bar. I have a total of 32 bars here. So it's 8 systems. I want 1, 2, 3, 4, because you're talking about 10 systems. All right. So there's the story. You've got 6 on the first, 4 on the second, right? I'm going to say don't do that. Why not put a page break here? And now you got 5 and 5. That's going to be way more pleasing, right? That is, to me, the better answer. Page break. So what I did was I hit Control Enter. That's what entered the page break. So that's my actual recommendation. But going back to the original where you have 6 and 4. First of all, to me, this is actually not bad. If it was 5, if it was 6 and 5, I would definitely recommend leaving it alone. In other words, if I add 4 more measures and add myself another line break, I would leave it alone. I would say, you know what? I like the consistent bottom margin here. That's the whole goal. We're aiming for that. But if you've got some special reason to really want there to be only 4 systems on this page, and for whatever reason you don't mind the ragged bottom, what you need to do is change some settings. So I'm going to show you where they are. Format, Style, and then under the page here, you're going to see a couple different settings here. There's a lot of controls to have here. So what I'm going to first suggest is that we just try reducing the maximum system distance. But I know from experience this isn't actually going to work right. I know it's not. Yeah, it actually is not working. I've discovered that because there is a bug that's already kind of fixed in what will eventually be a next version. But what I also know, there's a couple workarounds. One is to change this thing, this factor for distance between systems, reduce that down, and you get less space. So that's one of the things. And to be honest, I don't really remember exactly what these settings all do, but I just know the bottom line is that that works. So the other thing you can do that I don't really recommend, but you can do it. Okay. Oh, also the max page fill distance. This is how much it's going to try to fill to the bottom of the page. And if I reduce that also, um, now it won't try to fill out to the page. So that's another option, the max page fill distance. That's another one of the settings that controls how it tries to spread things out. The other thing you can do is just disable what says vertical justification of staves. Normally, I recommend keeping that on, but if you disable the vertical justification of staves, what that does, actually, let me get rid of, I must have changed. Oh, yes, because I fit 6 systems. See, that's one of the things. With vertical justification of staves, it lets you have very close staff distance. See how close the staves are here? On an empty staff. And then it will add more space kind of as necessary and spread things out to look nice. So this is good. In the situations where things are cramped and you want to save some space, this allows some systems to actually have really closely spaced staves and other systems to have them more spread. So that vertical justification is actually normally a good thing to do. But if I disable it, it forces there to be at least a certain amount of space there. So let me reduce that space for a minute. It's grand staff distance. I'm going to reduce that space so that I do get 6 systems here again. And now I think the max system distance I can reduce to be the same as the min system distance, and or just set it to what I want it to be, and then it controls how far it spreads things here. So there's a lot to. So wow, I'm seeing a lot of questions in here, and some of them are going to be real quick answers, I hope, and some of them will be involved, like this one. So your notes, like well, let me just enter some notes into this score that you see in the score section of the style dialog. And then there's Petaluma, which is another handwritten font that was just developed more recently and just incorporated into MuseScore 3.6. But, so as far as the note, now for text though, certainly you can, a lot of these are Google fonts because I'm on a Chromebook, as many of you know. If I press F2 and get the A to Muse Jazz text, already entered, to be honest. I guess the Muse Jazz text doesn't have those symbols, but it does have some of these other symbols. It does have things like, well, I thought it did, but apparently it doesn't have the codas and things like that, which is odd. I really actually thought it did, so I'm not sure what to say there. All right, so can you change the sound halfway through a score? Absolutely. So here, all I got to do is enter. So actually, for guitar, it's especially easy because guitar is designed for it. So I'm going to bring up the instrument dialog. I press I, and I'm going to add a guitar to this. Plucked strings electric guitar. All right, let me copy. Actually, I'm going to cut and then paste and then repeat, 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 repeat. So I've got a bunch of guitar here. All right, so I got my guitar playing this lovely little song I always use for everything. On the text palette, there's already some symbols here, but I think none of the ones that I actually want. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to add text and say distortion. And I'll right-click that text, staff text properties, and now here in this dialog, I select first of all which voice you want it to apply to. And yeah, it should probably default to applying to voice 1. There's technical reasons why it doesn't. This should probably be redesigned, but in any case, you'll always have to click the voice or voices you want it to apply to. And now you can change to these predefined channels that exist. So distortion. So now when I play, you get the distortion sound. So that's how you can do it for guitar because it has those channels already defined. For other instruments like piano, it doesn't have multiple channels already defined. So I would have to actually add one of these change instrument texts and select what its sound I want to change to. So I can change to a B flat cornet, and it's actually going to change. It's actually going to change the transposition and everything. So this is all customizable as well. But I feel like I want to. There's so many questions coming in that I'm going to try to give relatively brief answers. You know me, I'm not really capable of that, but I will. I'll do my best. So there's a really general question about composition workflow in MuseScore. I'll tell you my best answer to that. It's a real general answer. Is don't think of MuseScore as a composition tool. Think of it as a notation tool. And I'm not saying it's because it's incapable of being used as a composition tool. It's capable of it. There's some things that could be improved, but I find it's, how would I put it? I've tried to explain this before. The act of putting a note down into MuseScore kind of fixes it in your brain. And at that point, your brain closes off to other possibilities. I want to stay open to alternate possibilities as long as possible. So I do a lot of composing at the piano. And, then a real classical composer would say, oh, no, you shouldn't even do that. But whatever, we all have our thing. I compose a lot at the piano. I do compose away from the piano just on pencil and paper, but I like to work ideas out where I really have complete freedom to very quickly change my mind about things. And then I think I've showed you pictures, and I got to show you um, because it's relevant. This is a sketch of one of my pieces that I was working on. Can you see? I think you can see a little bit. It's scribbles. There's some words. There's arrows pointing, say, oh, I think from here I want to jump there. And it's a very loose, brainstormy method of composition I have. And it's not until rather later in the process that I worry about notating any of it. Now, I'm not saying every piece I ever write is that way, but that's my best general advice. Stay away from committing too soon. Don't commit too soon. It's, don't get one measure perfect, then write the next. Work out some ideas a little further. So anyhow, uh that is my best answer to that aspect of the question. Meanwhile, I just gotta let me I'll put this on screen so we can all see what's happening. Oh, audio? Dang it. Um is anything better? So that's not good. Is Let me check this. This is not, it says excellent connection. So I'm not seeing currently any reason why there should be a problem. Y'all can tell me if there's still problems, but I wouldn't be sure what I would be able to do about it if there were. But things look like they should be good. Yeah, they look like they should be good. So I'm hoping they're better. All right. So I'm sorry I gave some answers that maybe uh, weren't heard, and I apologize for that. If there's anything that you want to hear again, I'll try to repeat. But let's see here. So question about MuseScore website. I see, and I saw something about MP3s, MP4s, and I imagine that's related. Um, Bruce, I really want to attach. So yeah, so you would have to talk to the MuseScore .com people. I have zero connection to that. There's uh, probably not an obvious technical reason why, if you have an externally hosted audio file, why it couldn't be made to work. Um, but the way everything about synchronizing your score to the audio works involves communication between the sites and sending appropriate messages back and forth. So that other site would have to implement an API that MuseScore.com was able to work with. And if you want to implement such a website or know of one that does and are willing to invest the effort to figure out how to implement that API on the MuseScore.com site and volunteer your services to do it, I suppose it's possible. That's all I could say. But that's it's a it would be a big deal. It would be a lot of work to be able to do that. But there's no reason it shouldn't be possible. All right. So using tech or LaTeX. So I actually used Music Tech long ago. Yeah, Lily Pond, I don't know that it ever was spun off from tech, but it's a similar concept, right? I don't know that there's any literal relationship. Music Tech, there was a MuTech and a Music Tech that I use. I don't even know Music's Tech with the X, the one or was that the one I used? I don't remember. But they're different languages. To be honest, one that I've used very successfully is one called ABC. ABC was designed to be human readable from the very beginning. It was never designed to just be a language for entering music into a computer program. It was designed to be human readable and is actually used by a lot of like Irish folk musicians. That's really the world where, and Scottish folk musicians. That's where this language started. And ABC now has some excellent tools that can produce really nice looking scores. Um, and there's an ABC import facility available as a plugin within MuseScore also. So ABC is a language that's really well suited to being easily read and written by human beings, that it feels a little less like a programming language than the others. And again, it produces really good results, the programs. Um, that's yeah, that's something else you could look into if you really want to do this. So Chris Allen is asking about note spacing, sometimes uneven with triplets versus eighth notes. I know exactly what you're talking about. And can if you have, okay, let me remove that cornet because that's going to bug me. All right. If you have eighth notes here, right, and then in the other staff, you have triplets. What ends up happening, and it's maybe not too obvious here, but let me delete that line break. What ends up happening is it's trying to slot this D here after that D before this E, and it opens up this gap, and it's uneven as a result. So this is a limitation of our algorithm, where it's not smart enough to say, you know what, it's okay if this D and that D overlap slightly. It wants this D on the piano to start after the triplet D on the guitar. I actually implemented a trial improvement to the algorithm that would get that better by default. And maybe in MuseScore 4 that'll be there. But meanwhile, at least for this case, there is a bit of a workaround. Select let me think how you do it. You select the beam, and it's only going to work for beam notes, but mostly that's when this is a problem. Select the beam and click Local Relayout here in the inspector. What it does is it evens out that. So if I select all three of those and just collect local relayout, it will evenly space that beam. Excuse me, the notes on that beam, and allow them to a little bit overlap in ways that it wouldn't otherwise overlap with what's on the other staff. So that local relayout option can actually do good things for you. Okay, so what else we got here? More stuff about the glitch, more stuff about the glitch, more stuff about the glitch. Something about blank manuscript, but where did I see that? Want to create blank manuscript paper. So, oh, okay. So you're talking about increasing the size of things. So, and it's also possible that people have answered this already, but no. Okay, good. So yes, I'm guessing, who was it that asked about the manuscript paper? Colin. or colon. But uh, I'm guessing you tried increasing your staff size by right-clicking the staff and going to staff part properties and increase the scale here. Is that what you did? No, because if you did that, that would have increased that also. Maybe you tried doing it by increasing the line distance. That would do it, right? That actually, let me go back to the scale. Well, if I do it with line distance, definitely the clef doesn't scale, right? You can see that here. Let me, okay, here. We can see the clef did not scale when I did that. But if I do, I actually thought if I use the scale here, the clef would scale, and it did. But still, that's not really the right way to do it, because what it's going to do, it's only going to scale that staff, not other staves. And yes, for blank manuscript paper, maybe that's okay, but it doesn't scale everything uniformly, because certain things belong to the staff, and some things are bigger than the staff, like the title, for instance. I mean, not bigger, like physically bigger, but I mean, it's broader, a broader subject. In general, you shouldn't be messing with the staff properties to scale things unless you're trying to create an uneven look. What you should be doing instead is Format, Page Settings, and here's where you choose the size of a staff space, and everything scales with that. So if you want bigger paper, pick a bigger value there, and now everything scales. Everything uniformly across the whole score, with the exception of, I think, things like the header and footer are the only things that don't, pretty much. So that's how you should be doing that. And then if you're trying to create blank manuscript paper, first of all, there's a million of them out there already. There's not really a need to reinvent the wheel. You could probably download some PDFs or download a file. But what I would do is I would use the treble clef template, and then you now have blank manuscript paper. You can hide the clef. You can hide the time signature. Oh, by the way, I'm trying to click the time signature, but I'm failing because it keeps finding the clef. Control click will find the thing behind the clef. So now I can hide the time signature. I can actually go to staff properties and just say, don't show bar lines. In fact, don't show the time signature, don't show the clef. Even better. And now I've got everything hidden. Ooh, I need to hide measure numbers too, right? So I'll go to Format, Style, Measure Numbers, and say, nope, don't want those. Now there's nothing in there but some rests, and I can select all and press V to make them invisible. And now it's just a question of adding some line breaks. So I can come here, add, remove breaks, put them every 4 bars. Since it was 32 bars, this gives me 8 systems. Notice that the first system is indented, the last system isn't filled out. There's some more settings for that. So if I go to Style, because that would be normal in published music, that your first system should be indented, and if the last system is significantly shorter than the others, it won't be stretched out. Normally you try to finagle things so that doesn't happen, but this score is empty, so there's nothing to finagle. So I come over here to this page, no, on the score page, I can turn off the indent, and on the page, I can change this last system fill threshold to 0, meaning if that last system has anything on it at all, more than 0, if it's more than 0% full, it'll stretch it. So now I have basically blank manuscript paper. So that's my process for creating it, and then you can juggle the sizes in, how big you want your staff to be, how many systems you want there to be, by where you put your breaks. You can fiddle with all that to your heart's content to get different versions of this. Yeah, so those are some options there. So what else we have here? All right, I think I'm caught up, guys. So I need more questions. So so when I'm guessing it was while I was talking about uh when I was talking about composition process. workflow that I was cutting out, because that's when after I was talking about that, when I looked. I want to say a few more words about that. I often, um, uh, I do compose into MuseScore, but I try to not do it more than necessary. I really prefer composing in a more fluid world where I'm thinking further ahead, looking at big picture stuff, and then think of MuseScore as my way of notating it when I'm closer to done. But the reality is, I do a lot of composing, especially of short pieces in MuseScore, and I write a ton of short pieces because I use them as demonstrations for teaching. And also, well, yeah, that's actually the main reason I write so many short pieces. And so for short pieces, I do compose in the MuseScore, but I don't know that I have a specific workflow. I typically, I don't know, I try not to get too absorbed in composing one measure at a time. I try to think ahead, try to think about where I'm trying to go so that I don't. Uh, there's a number of problems that I see myself getting into over and over again if I think too much one note at a time, one measure at a time. One of them is the whole piece ends up being too similar. In other words, I'll use the same texture throughout the piece. Hey, I'm writing a piece for string quartet. I'm going to have all four strings play all the time. I probably shouldn't do that. I should probably thin out the texture some places. And I like to think about that big picture stuff and then think in terms of working on individual sections. That's one of the tricks that I use to help me escape the traps that I might otherwise fall into. All right, so now I see some questions coming in. So good. So, Chris, multi-part score, some setting is reduced to give the somewhat compressed action. Yeah, so if you are talking about scores for multiple instruments, yeah, absolutely. Like here's my MuseScore Café score. Here, I think because it's only a few staves, I think I have a full-size score here, but it's that same place, format, page settings. Yeah, I've got full-size staves here, but I can make them smaller. And by making them smaller here, I now have room for more staves. So probably this score has room for a lot more staves. Now it's stretching them out right now to fill the page, but now you could see I could add myself a whole, say, string section. Let's do that. Let's add myself um, a couple violins, viola, and cello. So, boom, now there's room for all of that. And the nice thing is, when you do that, it's only going to be there in the score that they're small. When you generate the parts, they will still default to being full size, an appropriate staff space size. One is like as small as you would ever need. Basic as one, it's going to be unreadable any smaller than 1 millimeter. It up. All right. So, other question about entering notes in the wrong voice. Um, so, so I guess Tom, question. Um, I'm. I will scroll back. Uh, could you re-ask that, because now I won't guarantee that I MuseScore if you just type C and wanting it to make sure everyone understands a seventh. However, if you've got some special reason seventh, this one I'll turn the playback off for. So now, okay, so I'm cutting out again. Oh gosh. Still says I have excellent connection. All right, am I any better? I'm gone again. Am I back? I have no idea what's going on with my audio. Nothing we will hear, but not see. So the end result should be I hear the major seventh, but I see it without the major seventh. Again, I really do not recommend that. Frozen again? Again, really? So I keep going back to my stream health panel, and it says excellent connection. Everything just looks good. YouTube is not currently receiving data? Really? Ah, not receiving data. Sure it is. I can see it. I can see it coming. So it froze again, right? Am I back? Am I back? I have no idea why it keeps cutting out. But I'm back again, yes? Um, but yeah, because I've had issues before, but not like this, right? So, uh, I'm just gonna keep trying. I'm just gonna keep trying because I seem to be good right now. Yes? Okay, so I'm just gonna try again. Um, no, actually, I didn't answer your barbershop question, Tom. I was talking about the triangle without a 7. I was recommending not to do that. That's what I was answering. Tom, I didn't quite get to your question. So, the question about the barbershop, copy and paste. So if you did um, actually, if you use the barbershop template, I don't know if you did or not, but let's use that one. Choral templates, barbershop. Man, if you entered notes into this voice, into the tenor part, and you meant it to be lead, just go to Tools, Voices, Exchange Voice 1 and 2. Now it's in the lead part. Or if you put it in tenor and you meant it to be in the baritone, use copy and paste. So select your notes, copy, come down here, paste, right? If there's also stuff already in voice 2, what you're going to go is you're going to use the selection filter. Like here, let's say I've got some notes. And say I only want to copy the voice 1 notes down to the bottom staff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to exclude voice 2 with the selection filter. Now only voice 1 is selected. I can copy it, and then I'll go down and reset my selection filter, because if you forget that, bad things happen, and paste. And only the voice 1 notes now copied because I excluded voice 2. So those are some things. You can also simply select the notes you want to move and just click the voice 2 button. But there's some limitations with that. That's really only meant for fixing individual notes, not for moving entire passages. So it's very limited. So that's something. So oh, I can see I just lost my screen. Ha! Look at that. I can fix that one though. This is a weird technical day, right? Weird day. Weird day. Okay. So, there we go. All right. I think again I'm back. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see if I see this go. "Ah." If I see that happen, then I'll know things are good. So yeah, so I fixed. I think I got that fixed. Okay, so hopefully, Tom, that answers some of those questions. But it's very specific to the situation. So you're going to be best off asking on the support forum and attaching your score and explaining, because maybe we can make better suggestions given the specifics of your situation. All right, I saw another thing. Okay, so something about history of changes. So yeah. History of changes. I could imagine such a thing. I could totally imagine there being something so that the undo would show the whole history of changes. Other than that, though, it's probably not really technically doable other than just by showing the undo stack. That's easy to show. You could propose a feature and design how you think it should work, and maybe someday it could be implemented. But that would be a pretty big deal to have an entire history. Um, but there was another question I saw in here, so let me. Do I use the timeliner navigation tool much? Zero. I never use them at all. I see no reason for them to exist other than people got used to the navigator back in the day. The timeline actually is occasionally useful for really large scores because then I can jump to individual movements, individual, find the tempo changes. So I occasionally use the timeline because it gives me a nice broad view. But I've never seen a use for the navigator ever, personally. All the scrolling I do, I can easily do with mouse wheel or jumping by Control F to jump to a particular measure number, page number, rehearsal letter. I've never seeing a picture of page numbers to be useful to me. So that's me. So what else did I see in here? Courtesy. Okay, so one general question I'm going to answer here from Ethan. Yeah, so when Martin Tantacool did his video on MuseScore, pointed out a lot of issues, a lot of like minor tweaks, and a lot of things. We have dealt with a lot of these things, but yeah, there's some stuff that's still not the way we would want it, the way he would want it. So he is actively working on new designs, and MuseScore 4 will incorporate them. And not everything is necessarily, not every idea he ever had is even going to be in MuseScore 4, but it's going to be re-architected in a way that makes it possible. So yeah, there's still plenty of things to be changed. And one of the biggest ones is just has to do with this workflow question, making it more clear how to create a new score. Like right now, so many people using MuseScore just use the default score. Let me undo everything I've done in this score. Um, so many people just start with that default empty score. Okay, I'm obviously not gonna. Okay, I'm back. There we go. Um, uh, and then I try to figure out how to turn this into something else, rather than discovering, you know what, if you go to File New, there's all of these templates here all set up for you, waiting for you. That's just not made apparent enough. So everything about that process is still not really ideal, even though we've made some improvements. So some of the things coming from MuseScore 4 will have to do with the overall experience of when you first start the application, what you're presented with, and what you're guided to do, basically. So those are some things that are yet to come, and then there's a lot more stuff coming to try to make you know move us more in the direction of a sequencer or a digital audio workstation. So I see some comments about a lock feature, and yeah, internally we do have a kind of a lock type of feature, but it doesn't really do a full job of things. So uh, it's not really exposed very well in the interface or anything. But at some point, that's something. Yeah, I could totally see that happening. All right, so let's see. What else did I miss? You have me in double? Oh gosh. Huh. Double? I don't see double. So I'm guessing, yeah, that is something that someone had individually. So what else did I have in here? Feels like I missed something else. Creating, oh yeah, switching between different versions of the score. Um so uh I don't know if you're creating new versions of a score. um I don't have any brilliant observation or ideas for you, but if you're not aware of it, I am going to show you. This isn't really what you're asking about, probably, but there is this fairly cool tool where Like, let me make some changes to my MuseScore Café. I'm just going to move that note down an octave. I'm now going to go to View Score Comparison Tool. And now you see the MuseScore Café current version is score 1, score 2, MuseScore Café last saved version. And then you can also load a completely different score in here using the Browse button. When I hit Compare, okay, it just took a second. It's showing me what's different. And apparently what is different is this pitch changed from D flat 5 to D flat 6 and E flat 5 to E flat 6. Oh, because that's in the part. So basically that just did it, right? And then also it's telling me about the F4 changing to F5. This, by the way, when you click on one of these, it takes you directly to that spot. So I think you have to double click it. It takes me directly to that note and lets you see that that's what changed. So if you have two different versions of a score, that score comparison tool will show you exactly which notes have changed. Not just notes, but if the text has changed, if you've added hairpins or whatever, it'll show you basically everything that's different. So that score comparison tool is pretty cool. I realize that's probably not really what you're asking about, but it's related, right? So I'm going to close the score comparison tool, and you notice I still have this sort of side-by-side view, which is also nice. But you can change how much of the score is on either side. If you want to turn that off now, you actually have to turn off documents side by side. It doesn't pop off. There we go. So let me undo those changes. All right. So that's my best answer to anything having to do with that. Oh, my chat didn't stop popping out. All right, back to pop out chat. So I'm really sorry for all the technical issues that have been happening here, and yeah. Well, one thing that I will say about the locking is uh, if you're accustomed to dragging your canvas around, I can see why you might want to use the navigator because this is slow as molasses. And it's also really error prone because you might drag notes around. If you're accustomed to just using the scroll wheel, either just regular scroll wheel to go vertically or with shift to go horizontally, you almost never accidentally change something. I can't remember the last time I've accidentally changed something. So I would say that it's worth maybe examining your working methods if you find yourself accidentally changing things often. But that said, sure, a way to lock things would be nice too. So do you want to see chords but not a visible score? Yeah, I can totally do that for you. Let me show you that. And then, I might be getting ready to wrap up. But so I can't be exactly sure what you want it to look like, but let's try this. I'm going to enter some chords. I'm going to say C and D minor 7, G7, C. All right, first thing I want to do maybe is make these chords bigger. So I'll make them 16 point. And I will set that as style. Hit the set as style button so all the chords are that size. And then I'm going to take one of these chords and I'm going to just use control. Oops, I changed that. Let me reset that. My cursor was still in the 16. So it's out of the 16, control down, moves the C onto the staff. And now I will set that as the style. Also, I need to do it both to this minimum distance and to offset. What did I do? Oh, I hit reset. Silly me. I meant to hit set as style. So I hit set as style and set as style. Now, the minimum distance is what allows the chord symbols to overlap the staff, because by default, that wouldn't be allowed. So now my chords are on the staff. Now I can right-click the staff and say invisible staff lines. Boom. And then I probably should have made the rests invisible first, but I can still make things work. I'm going to say select, I right click, and then select all similar elements, V. Well, there you go. I now have chord symbols on the staff, and I can enter more chord symbols, and they will happily, etc. Right? So that's that answer. So that was assuming that that's what you're talking about. That's an answer right there. So Uh, yeah, so there's a lot of other, ways that people like to produce things. But if you're trying to do that thing that you sometimes see where there's just lyrics and chords above it, here I'll again say, please don't do that, or please don't make me read it. There's nothing more frustrating to me than trying to read chord symbols that don't have bar lines between them, because otherwise I really don't know when to change the chord. I can't read the lyrics and listen to the singer and guess, oh, they finally said the word fire, so now I know it's time to change to the G chord. I'm focused on the chords. I can't be focused on everything else. So I want to really just see the chord symbols in the bar line. So I really am not, I'm really an anti-fan of that style of just lyrics with chord symbols directly over it. That said, there's other programs that can produce that well. So I would use one of those other programs for that. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is, since questions are chilling out and there's been enough technical glitches that I don't really need to take my chances too much more anyhow, I'm going to wrap this session up. I do want to show you one thing, though, of my own, just because I just discovered this today. It's kind of cool. There's a lot of things you can do with text that I've been experimenting with that are kind of fun. Like, there's all these special characters you can enter. So, for instance, if you are editing your text and you press F2, you get this special characters dialog, and there's crazy amounts of cool stuff in here. All these different musical symbols you can enter directly into your text, but also Unicode, the sort of international standard for stuff, has a lot of really cool symbols. So these box drawing symbols let you draw these really cool little things like, here's what I drew. This, and then a few of these, and then one of those, right? And it gives me this nice little bracket kind of thing that you would use sometimes in Roman numeral analysis. But the other one I figured out today, that comes up all the time, and we always tell people use an image, but you don't even have to use an image. And that's to make that sort of notation that you can maybe see right here where my cursor is lower left. This 2/8 equals triplet quarter eighth. You can do that. You can enter that as text. If you're in the musical symbols section of this dialog, you can type under beam groups of notes, there's the quarter note, and then extend the beam a little bit. And then, I'm not the quarter note, but it's, an unbeamed note anyhow. And then you extend the beam a bit, and then you have another note with a closing beam. And then I'm going to enter, well, I'm just going to enter the notes, all the notes I want first, then I'll come back and add spaces and things. Then I can come, I'm also going to want a triplet thing, so I'll enter the bracket for the triplet. And then the note that I want is actually under individual notes. And I want the quarter note. And then I want to go back to the beamed groups and get that 3. And then I want the 8th note back under individual notes. And then back under beamed group, I want the end of the toplet bracket. All right, so now I have basically what I need. I just need to maybe get a little space between that note there to space this out a little better. Add a space before that whole thing, a space and an equal sign. And gee, that equal sign is too big and too low, both of which I solve with superscript. And bingo, I have that bit of text that sometimes people like to add to their scores. And it's not the best looking triplet bracket you've ever seen in the world, but it gets the point across, right? So you can enter one of those, and what I did is I entered it as staff text, I entered one of those as staff text, and then once you've entered some staff text, you can just Control Shift drag it to your palette like that. And now you can add more to your score or any other scores just by clicking it in the palette and get it there. So that's a pretty cool little trick there, that you can actually create some pretty interesting effects just using all those special characters. I've used the special characters a lot, but I've never really explored the possibilities until recently. Okay, so what I'm going to do is say I've done a good enough job and fighting the demons of YouTube here. Oh, so thanks everyone for being here for the MuseScore Cafe today. And I'm always apologizing for technical issues, but they're a fact of life, right? So we deal with them. So next week I'll definitely plan to take questions too, because publicity today. I might have my own topic as well, but I'll focus a lot on your questions. So again, every Wednesday, this is what we do. The first Wednesday is when I'll try to make this. I'll make this Ask Me Anything be a regular feature. And join me tomorrow if you can for my music masterclass, same here on YouTube. And if not, see you next week or whenever I